All right. It's now 66-48. So
Jesus.
I keep sweeping the three. I don't know. Like that definitely got to be a record. I don't
I'm
think
hitting like
that's
60% in the NFL this year. I've had two losing weeks. I'm crushing it, and I'm getting killed because you're just on another level.
And I was checking my Action Network app recap. Do a great little recap of your top year, and apparently my top team. I guess I'll let you guess. Who do you think my top team of 2022 was, units wise?
The Panthers.
I would have thought that might have been two. The San Francisco 49ers. I think it's because it was like betting them every week in the playoffs, and then against betting them against the Rams twice this year. So I think I just went like 5-0 or 6-0 or something. I had like plus 7.5 units on the Niners, but that kind of surprised me too.
Yeah, mine still, even after last week, still the Bengals, and I bet them every playoff game, Super Bowl, and then a bunch early in the season, and they're 20-3.
Yeah,
against the spread of the past 23 games.
You should just bet the Bengals as favorites every week, just to like fuck it, like they just cover every fucking week somehow.
Yeah,
I mean, not somehow. They are a good team, but yeah, would
but
expect them to stop.
they do get some good variance at the end of games second halves lately. But yeah, if you get Joe Burrow and that offense and the defensive adjustments they make in the second half leads to a lot of covers, and especially when Nick Folk misses 2 extra points.
Yeah,
I'm not bitter.
We did hit a money line parlay, which we'll get to later. All right, so you started off. Where you going? What's your first pick?
Yeah, I think we hit our teasers and both totals. No, I think you missed your total.
No, my total did not go anywhere near it. No, it's not even close.
All right, for my first pick of the Week 17 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the New York Football Jets -1.5 at the Seattle Seahawks. Mike White is back. That's all that matters here. I don't understand the market and how the market is rating the difference between Mike White and Zach Wilson. 2 weeks in a row, we've seen Mike White get ruled out and the Jets take money late in the week with Zach Wilson starting. I move 2-3 points to the Jets, which makes 0 sense because Zach Wilson now has a lower ELO through his first 22 starts than any other quarterback in the history of the NFL. He is a complete and utter bust. He is awful. He's horrendous. Mike White not only has this locker room, but he can run the offense and he can complete passes. That's what the Jets need. And since week 10, after those Cardinals wins, I remember I was making fun of Seattle, and Seattle hasn't covered since, by the way. Seattle Island, lonely place. Seattle's 31st in EPA per play on D. They've played the Raiders, Rams, Panthers, 49ers, and Chiefs. 3 backup quarterbacks in there, and they're 31st in EPA per play on D. Lockett, we don't know how healthy he'll be or if he'll even play. I assume he'll play, but he's got to beat a pan. I don't know if he can hang on to balls, but the Jets can take away the run. That neutralizes Geno Smith, who's declining and coming back down to earth with each week. And Jets do get a few extra days rest here if they're playing on Thursday. They're 5-2 against the spread on the road this year. They've had no problem going on the highway. Their games they didn't cover were the Vikings game where they dominated and got stopped at the goal line like 3 times at the end. And then the Pats walk-off punt return, which covered to 3.5. That's it. Jets, both teams need to win, keep their playoff hopes alive. Motivation will be there for both. The Seahawks, I don't think the market is adjusting fast enough to the Seahawks. That people still think like, oh, Geno Smith, the Seahawks, they haven't covered in 6 weeks. They're on a downward trend. I don't think the market is upgrading the Jets enough for Mike White. Jets defense will be the best unit on the field by a wide margin. That's the difference here. Jets get it done on the road. Give me Mike White.
I love this. Just you've just been kind of following the Mike White money the last couple of weeks. It's like when he starts, you bet the Jets. When he's not, you fade the Jets. And then that one time you got caught with Mike White getting ruled out, which was ridiculous. I don't have the number quite as high as you, but I don't mind it. I think you're essentially just kind of picking which it's inside of 3, inside of 2 even. So you're just kind of picking which team you think is going to win, and I would lean Jets. as well here. I think that Seahawks run defense just lets teams kind of hang around. Like, even if you're not the greatest offense, the Jets are a pretty solid offense with White, but because their run defense is so bad, they let you get into third and manageable. And so it kind of negates, Woolen and some of those guys. And they're not even great in terms of defending number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, even with those corners. So I think that run defense is really starting to hurt them. So the Jets, their run game has kind of gone missing these past couple of games. So I think that being able to recapture that, Donovan Knight, Michael Carter's healthier now. I think that'll be key for the Jets offense too, not just Mike White.
Yeah, you're playing a bad run D, and you have to respect the pass more because you're not playing Zach Wilson. And those Jets receivers now can actually do something with a quarterback and get them the ball. And I think the Jets get it done on the road here and keep their playoff hopes alive. Got to be rejuvenated, by the way, because everything that happened in the AFC, it's Miami. It looks like Tua might be out for the year. That they play the Dolphins in Week 18. Like, they went out. The Jets, I think, will be 90% to go.
87. Yep, 87%. Yeah, went out, and the Jets are 87% chance. There's only like one scenario. I think if New England goes undefeated, that would knock the Jets out.
Yep. All right. So I'm going Jets. Where are you going next?
It's gonna be kind of an ugly week, but for my first pick and the second overall of the Week 17 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the New Orleans Saints +6 on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. And this number to me is pretty big when you consider that, number one, the Eagles are starting Gardner Minshew. Number two, the Eagles lost their best offensive lineman, or you could say second best, depending on what you think of Kelsey. But Wayne Johnson, that's big. 7th of 81 Huge. Tackles. Yeah, is what he grades out as. So you're getting the Eagles, but you're getting the Eagles team that is still kind of sitting pretty in terms of their playoff position. A team that now has to be a little more careful, I think, because now you're finding out that maybe Jalen Hurts is hurt a little more than we thought he was. And there's a question of how even effective he can be if he does come back for the playoffs. So now it's like you got to maybe be a little more careful with Minshew too, and maybe some of these other guys as well. So I know Philly wants to beat New Orleans for the draft pick, but this New Orleans team has been solid on defense. And I think that this is just too big of a number here when you're talking about a backup quarterback and your best offensive lineman out against a New Orleans team that, their defense has been, it's traveled well. We just have to hope that New Orleans can give us enough points here, but you're getting 6.5 at some spots. I've seen a 7. So I really like this matchup for New Orleans here. Andy Dalton has been good against zone coverage all year. Philly loves to play zone coverage, and it's another one of these games where you're seeing a large spread and a total that's not that high. The total is 44, of course, because you got Gardner Minshew instead of Jalen Hurts, and you got one of your best offensive linemen in the league out. But yet, when you see these totals this year, anything more than a field goal, with a total of 47 or less, 67 and 41 against the spread, 62%. And that makes a ton of sense because it's just hard to get separation, cover these numbers, and, stop the team from, potentially getting a backdoor, getting it to within 3 points late in the game. So, yeah, give me New Orleans here. I like the way New Orleans is playing. I think that they'll be able to exploit this Philly run D, which is still, it's not great. It's better than it was at some points in the year, but it's still average, about 16, 17 by DVOA weighted. So I think Philly, it's going to be a much more of a struggle than I think people think. And the thing that really caught my eye about Minshew was that he had a 79 passer rating. He has a 79 passer rating this year from a clean pocket. He has a 62 passer rating when he's not blitzed. And, New Orleans is, for whatever reason, they haven't been the greatest at getting pressure, but they don't force it. They kind of sit back and they're going to play their coverage. And Minshew really hasn't been great, even with all those weapons against those coverages yet. So, I think there's even a chance Philadelphia could end up losing this game, but I could see, a 27-24, 23-20 type of game where New Orleans stays feisty on both sides of the ball, run some Taysom Hill packages and stays in this. So give me New Orleans +6.
Yeah, I completely agree here. Lane Johnson injury is huge. The Eagles are 3-10 straight up without Lane Johnson since 2020. He is arguably the best right tackle in the NFL. He's huge. You also have like C.J. Gardner-Johnson probably still out. Avonte Maddox, who's really important, he's most likely out. Jordan Davis, who's been so big to the run D, their run D numbers fall off a cliff. He has a concussion. You also look at their practice report from today. Miles Sanders would have been a DNP with an injury, and AJ Brown was limited with a knee injury, assuming he'll play. But yeah, the Saints defense has been playing a lot better. They're healthier now. They are one of 3 teams in the NFL that has allowed less than 20 points in 4 straight games. The other 2 being the Steelers and Ravens, who play each other. We'll talk about that game later. But yeah, the Eagles aren't healthy now. Eagles are also 13-2 in the last 20 years. And I agree, this line is inflated. Last 20 years, teams with an 85% plus win percentage in has to be week 10 or later. 51-89-2 against the spread, 36.4%. So yeah, I agree with you on the Saints with Minshew starting. And yeah, I think the Eagles, you could cut this out of the, look, the coaches wanted to rest last week, and they got all these injuries and Laurie came down late in the week and said, no, we have to beat the Cowboys, and they ended up playing everyone and getting hurt, getting key injuries. Lane Johnson, if he's out for the postseason, that could be massive. Like going against the 49ers, the Cowboys. You saw when Lane Johnson went down against the Cowboys, it was a completely different game when they were playing against Cooper Rush. And they had to their offense just went into the tank. So yeah, they have a number of injuries. Jordan Davis important in the run game. They have some secondary injuries. And yeah, I think the Saints will be feisty here in a lower scoring game. I think 6 is the way to go.
By the way, what it's setting up for with these NFC playoffs, right? 49ers keep losing quarterbacks, Eagles losing key players. The Vikings are going to just end up winning the NFC and going to the Super Bowl after this fucking ridiculous season where they went 11-0 in 1-score games. Like, it's going to happen. That's what's setting up to do.
Vikings +21 against the Bills in the Super Bowl.
My
God. Yeah, no, then the thing is, then Vikings fans will say, "Oh, look, see, everyone said we weren't as good as." No, your estimated wins are 6. By the way, they have 12, but all you got to do is get in. I think the Giants in 2011 finished. They won the Super Bowl. By the way, they finished the season, including the playoffs, with a negative point differential. I believe that's correct. The whole season, they snuck in the playoffs. That's all you got to do. Sneak in. Once you get in, again, you could win you could win a couple more lucky games, and then all of a sudden you're in the Super Bowl. It's football. So yeah, that would be very fitting for this season. I'm trying to think would be Vikings, the funniest realistic Super Bowl that no one would have predicted. Vikings Jags Super Bowl.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I would say Vikings Titans after all, because at this point I feel like the Jags we're expecting the Jags to just take that, but it'd be funny if the Titans finally got there, after all that, after all those years where they were a high seed. But yeah,
Vikings Jets rematch. All right.
Yeah.
For my second pick in the third overall, the Week 17 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts +5.5 at the New York Giants. This is bread and butter play for me. I'll have an article out this week and next week about these types of plays. Week 17, Week 18, teams that need to win. The Giants need to win. The Colts are dead. They're eliminated. Everyone just saw them get embarrassed again on Monday Night Football. Eliminated teams the final 2 weeks of the regular season, playing teams that need to win, are 95, 57, and 4 against the spread. That's 62.4%, 62.5% since 1990. Sample size of about 150 games, 62.5%, because the teams that need to win are generally inflated late in the season. And for what it's worth, last 2 weeks of the regular season also, teams with a win percentage between 40 and 70%, who have a 5 to 35% win differential in the positive direction against their opponent, are 57, 88, and 5 against the spread, 39.3% over the past 20 years. So I think this number is inflated. Like, the Giants have been feisty, but the Giants also have all their wins. All 8 wins have come by 1 score, including a number of fourth quarter comebacks. Nick Foles is going to get the start again for the Colts. I don't think there's any drop off between him and Ryan and so whatever. They all stink, but at least Foles got the rust off, right? Like, last week was his first game. You could tell he was just off and like reading coverages, and it's just first action of the season. So he's not going to be good, but he'll be better than he was last week or at least I assume. And then the Colts should also get their run game going here, going against the Giants' run D, which is I think 31st in EPA per rush, 31st DVOA. They're very bad, poor run D. So the Colts actually can lean on a little bit on the ground here. And you're asking the Giants to win by a touchdown here. That is not the Giants' MO. This is when you want to fade the Giants at home as a favorite. By the way, Daniel Jones, he's only been favored by more than this one other time. He's favored by 6.5 at Cincy in 2020. They must have been sitting guys. I don't even know, but they only won by 2 in that game.
It was the Brandon Allen game. That's what it was.
Brandon Allen. Yeah, Brandon Allen.
Or even maybe it was a third string guy. It might have been oh man, what's his name? I can't even think of it. But yeah, it was somebody bad for Cincinnati. It wasn't Dalton.
Whedon?
No, it was maybe Driscoll. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, I am too.
1917. It was Brandon Allen.
Oh, it was Brandon Allen. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was somebody else, but okay. Yeah,
he finished 17 of 30 for 115 yards. The Bengals rushed 15 times for 40 yards, and they lost 19-17 with 150 total yards of offense. All right. So yeah, this is when you want to fade the Giants. All the pressure's on the Giants. The Colts are still going to try. They're still professional athletes. This is what happens in the NFL every single season. And by the way, the Colts when we backed them this year after an embarrassing loss, what have they done after their double-digit losses this year? They lost by 3 at Minnesota, and again, they were up 33-0. They beat the
Still
Chiefs.
Embarrassing, but yes.
Yeah. And they won at the Raiders. So they were 3-0 against the spread as underdogs. Should be 3-0 straight up. And I think that this line is too high. You're asking this Giants team, which is still, look, their offense has been way better just because of the coaching. There's a huge coaching mismatch here, but I like coaching mismatches when I back in the team as an underdog a lot more than when they have to cover by margin here. So I think this line is a little inflated. All the pressure is on the Giants, and give me the Colts here after getting embarrassed on Monday night with Big Dick Nick Foles.
Yeah, I was thinking about this one too. I think this is the right side. Probably. I know some people were on I think Sharps were on the Colts last week too against the Chargers, but probably a week too soon. As you mentioned, Foles has to knock off the rust. They have to kind of get their offense in line here. But yeah, this Giant team, I mean, we know their MO. They're gonna be in a 1-possession game, and they, now they have to win it by a touchdown. They have to, prevent the Colts from, getting a backdoor away. Foles wants to throw downfield more. Giants will play man coverage, so Foles will get some opportunities to throw it down the field. Now, will he connect? We don't know, but the Colts receivers aren't terrible. I mean, they got decent skill position guys, so just have to get Foles some time a couple of times to get some shots downfield. But
and the good thing is you have it's a low total, and and for what it's worth, week 16 road dogs from 2003 to 2020. That was before the schedule expansion, so the second to last week. Road dogs that with an under 500 record, catching over a field goal, 53, 35, and 2 against the spread, 60%. A lot of times these teams, again, that speaks directly to like the teams that need to win, playing a team that's already eliminated. usually getting some line value. The other thing is here, you're getting a Colts defense that's healthy now, and it's still a top 10 unit. I think they're 10th DVOA, and they're still playing.
8th and weighted DVOA. So that
they're still playing
the most recent games. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still playing hard. And I think that this game will be close. Wouldn't shock me if the Colts won.
Yeah, I mean, the total's 38.5. I was thinking about that under, but it's just gotten so low. And because the Giants play man coverage, not my favorite spot, especially with the Colts coming off a bad game. Usually those lines are kind of inflated the other way, deflated, I guess you could say, with the team coming off a 3-point showing. So, I like this one. And speaking of which, for my second pick, the 4th overall of the Week 17 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Chicago Bears, +6 at the Detroit Lions. And you kind of hit on a lot of the reasoning with the Colts. I mean, the Bears are, playing for draft positioning at this point. And the Lions still have a playoff shot. And I think this is too many points. I think this would be too many points even regardless here because, I know Chicago's defense is very bad, but their secondaries has been improving over the last couple of weeks. Kyler Gordon, the rookie, is ranked 22nd of 106 qualifiers at cornerback.
Wait, you're going with the Bears?
Yeah.
God damn, you. So we do to give a peek into how we do this. So we'll just message each other because we do a snake draft on. And I think, by the way, 8 weeks in a row you've gone with a pick. Your first pick's been one that I wanted. You messaged me Detroit, and I was like, oops. So which doesn't matter. But I was like, I like the Bears. I was like, I could pick up a point here. And then I was so curious to hear your reasoning for laying 6 with Detroit.
Yeah, and, no. Yeah.
So which is really funny. I almost went head to head with you. I was like,
you should have.
Going to go head to head.
That would have been like would that have been like a rules technicality like that? Because I did. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I definitely typed Detroit, but I meant the Detroit game. Obviously, I'm taking the dog in this game, but I'm taking the Bears +6 because of the same reason. They are eliminated. Detroit is not. I think this is too many points. I think Chicago's secondary is improving. As I mentioned, Kyler Gordon's ranked 22nd over the last couple of weeks. He got 2 picks. And Jalen Jones, their other corner, has allowed just 59 yards on 10 targets with 2 pass breakups over the last 2 weeks. And so I think that, the D-line is still bad. Let's not get it twisted. But we'll talk about Detroit. I mean, Detroit's kind of sinking back down as well. But, we know Detroit loves the blitz. Justin Fields, 105 passer rating against the blitz compared to 82 when he's not blitz. So, it might make Detroit make a decision here. Do you want to kind of play left-handed and not send everybody and kind of sit back and protect against Fields running? Or do you want to, play to your identity and risk him, balling out? So I think that's a good matchup here for Fields. And listen, this Detroit team, I said on this podcast, hey, their defense is improving. We both talked about it. And then they come out last week in a game that they really could have used and gave up 320 rushing yards to the Carolina Panthers.
8.5 yards per play.
It was absurd. I mean, not only that.
8.8 yards per play.
And not only that, they give up, the yards per play exactly, because not only do they give up 320 yards on the ground, they let Sam Darnold get 250 passing yards on just 22 attempts. So they're Sam Darnold's averaging over 10 yards per pass attempt last week. So, you want to call it reversion to the mean because this defense was one of the league's worst over the first, 7-8 games of the year. But at this point, I don't think we can trust Detroit's defense. I know they're at home, so I think their offense will be fine. But again, I think Chicago can hang here because Fields good against the blitz. This Detroit Chicago can do some of what Carolina did in terms of game planning, except they have a much more explosive quarterback that adds a whole different element, to that. Because Detroit also has been one of the worst teams in the league against running quarterbacks. So, I think Chicago is going to be able to score points here. And remember, Chicago in Soldier Field had a 24-10 lead after 3 quarters in Week 10. So that was after Detroit already kind of was on the up and up. And Detroit ends up winning that game by 1 point. But Detroit had just 2 penalties in that game. Chicago had 9. Chicago still loses by 1. Detroit had no turnovers in that game. Chicago had 1. So, this could easily be a 3-4 point win for Detroit, even if it is a win. But I think Chicago's still playing hard here. They're not giving up on the season. Justin Fields says he wants the rushing record. Eberflus says he wants them to finish, learn how to close games. They were in it against Buffalo, and then the score got away late. So I think Chicago here is going to hang close, and we see this. Beyond just the teams facing elimination versus teams with nothing to play for, just team underdogs coming off a bad loss. When you have an underdog coming off a loss of 20 or more points since 2017, 108, 70, and 3, 61% against the spread. So I like the Chicago Bears +6 here. I think it's another one of those games that Chicago just hangs around, just like they did against Atlanta, just like they did against Miami. They've been in most of these games this year, with the exception of a select few. So like Chicago in this spot to get it done +6.
Yeah, I love the Bears here. By the way, Week 16 division road dogs is 6 or more from 2000 to 2020, the second to last week of the season. 73% against the spread if they have an under 500 record. Again, speaks to the line value you're getting on playing teams that the market perceives as dead. But look, if you look at the Lions, I know the Lions have all the pressure here. A team that's not used to dealing with the pressure have to win. Bears can play loose. Bears were -3 at home last month.
Yep.
In that game you talked about. Now you're catching 6, and they should have won that game. But there was that turnover you mentioned was a pick 6 that flipped the whole game around. So not only were they lose the turnover about a 1-0, it was a pick 6. And if you look, the Bears, I think it's a good spot to buy the Bears low. They were competitive in a lot of their losses this year. This is the stretch they're coming off of. They got blown out by the Jets. That was Simeon against Mike White. Then they played the Packers, who they should have beat. If you look statistically, they dominated that game. Then they played the Eagles, who they covered against, and the Bills. So it's a very tough stretch. And if you look at the Lions, thought their defense was improving. I dug into the Lions. Their run D's very bad still. And that's obviously what the Bears are going to do here. And I think that they can exploit that run D. The Lions defense also is allowing a touchdown or first down on 77% of series. That's the highest percentage in the NFL. They're also allowing forcing the lowest punt percentage in the NFL at 10%. And if we look, everyone has kind of just fell in love with the Lions over their last 8 games, 6-2 stretch. But over that time, if you dig in, 31st in EPA per play on defense if you remove turnovers. They were getting a bit lucky on turnovers, red zone, special teams. Look at that Jets game with their special teams plays. Here over that 6-2 stretch, they beat the Packers by 6. They were outgained 400 to 250 and over a yard per play. They beat the Bears by 1, outgained by 100. Bears averaged 7 yards per play in that game, 5.5 for the Lions. They beat the Giants by 13. They were outgained by 100 yards in that game and by over a half yard per play. They lost to the Bills by 3, respectable loss, but they were outgained again. They gave 400 yards and only had 320, outgained by a half yard per play. The one good win, the only game over the past 8 where the Lions outgained their opponent in yards per play was the Jags. Great win. Horrible spot for the Jags. I think it was just one of those games where the Jags just didn't show up. Beat the Vikings by 11. 6.6 to 6.6 yards per play. Beat the Jets by 3. They were 5.5 yards per play for the Jets, 5.4 for the Lions. And that was with Zach Wilson. And then they lost to the Panthers by 14, 570 to 381 in yardage, 8.8 to 6.2. So, they were getting fortunate defense. The defense is still bad. This is too many points. Great spot for the Bears. Wouldn't be shocked if Chicago pulls this off.
Yeah.
All right. For my third pick of the Week 17 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Denver Broncos plus 12.5 against the Kansas City Chiefs. I played the Broncos, and look, now you're in a dead zone. I played them 13.5 and 13. You can still find a 13 out there. You might as well wait. It's not going to go down to 10. 11 would be semi-important, but it's not going to keep going down. You can wait to see if there's some late Chiefs money. I think because 13 is decently important. I don't think it would ever get back up to 14. But I played the Broncos, a couple weeks ago when they were catching 8.5, 9 at home. And I think that this is a good spot to back them on the road against a Chiefs team that generally doesn't cover these big numbers, especially at home. And by the way, in the lower scoring environment this year, double-digit favorites are 8-15 against the spread on the season. That's the worst start for double-digit favorites in the last 20 years. And look, the Broncos also got blown out last week, lost by 36 to the Rams, gave up 50 plus. Just an absolute classic spot when you're betting the NFL. Both of them combined. Let's just look historically. Lose by 35 plus. The next week, 74, 41, and 5 against the spread, covering by about a field goal per game. As an underdog, after you lose by 35 plus, 57, 26, and 5, covering by about 3.5 points per game. That's 69%. Nice. How about as a double-digit underdog after losing by 35 plus? 16 and 3 against the spread over the past 20 years, covering by 10 points per game, 84%. How about when you allow 50 plus? 61% over the past 20 years. How about lose by 35 plus and give up 50? 18 and 9 against the spread, covering by 5 points per game. And as a dog, 70% when both of those things happen. So look, the Broncos offense, I mean, last week was just an absolute embarrassing effort. Hackett got canned. Historically, there's a little bump in the first week with a new head coach. I don't think it can't get any worse without Hackett. I think he already had lost the team. Russell Wilson, who's been horrific this year, his only game where he looked competent was against these Chiefs. And by the way, Courtland Sutton didn't even play in that game. He'll play in this game. Jerry Jeudy went off. These two teams are familiar with each other. Divisional game late in the season. I think this is too many points for a Broncos defense that played well every single week up until last week. And I think they just had enough and things just got out of control. But this is a prideful unit. They're playing their rival in Kansas City. I think they'll show up here. And this is when you want to fade the Chiefs and you want to fade Mahomes when he's, and by the way, he's under 500 against the spread at home. And, you know, as a favorite, not great when he's a favorite by over 7 points. So I think Denver's defense shows up here. It's a classic spot to buy an NFL team after they got completely embarrassed in a divisional game with a lowerish total. This is too many points to me.
Yeah, I mean, what was one of the last things I said on the pod last week? I was like, hey, it ain't Broncos D ain't see Baker bake yet. It ain't baked up 51.
That was probably my worst. I had some Broncos money. That was probably my worst bet of the NFL season.
I told you, man, it's that you could just see it coming from a mile away, like just a meltdown on the West Coast in a game they just give no fucks about. But now I think it's about pride. Yeah, I wish I knew more about this Rothberg guy. It's kind of an odd choice for the interim coach, but I guess I heard Avero turned it down. So weird stuff going on. But yeah, you usually see teams like this bounce back and kind of keep it close for at least that first week after they fire their coach. And the Chiefs really haven't been covering many of these numbers. Yeah, don't disagree.
I mean, he was the special teams coordinator under Harbaugh for 10 years. So
okay.
He's sharp guy, part of the Ravens organization, understands game management. I mean, they hired him to tell Hackett what to do midway through the season, and from a game management perspective, because he was heavily involved in that with the Ravens, and the Ravens are best in class when it comes to that. So from a game management standpoint, the Broncos will be good here. Just game management decisions and clock management. And I think just going from Hackett to anybody, I think could be a one game bump, and you could see some new looks here. That's usually what happens in the first week, but yeah, I think this is too many points for a divisional game this late in the season, and a Chiefs team that just, they don't really show their best in games like this. And this number's too high for against the Broncos defense, where you can give them a pass for 1 week. This has been one of the best defenses in the league the entire season.
Yeah. All right. For my third and the sixth overall of the week 17 six-pack, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2.5 at FanDuel, the official sponsor of the Action Network podcast, at the Baltimore Ravens. See if you can get a 3. I think this number got steamed. But there were some 3s sitting around. Maybe it'll get back, maybe it won't. But doesn't look like we're gonna get Lamar Jackson here. And this is a game that I just think when you look at the history of these two teams, I almost blind bet the underdog in this matchup, because if you go back, Harbaugh versus Tomlin, Pittsburgh versus Baltimore, the underdog is 21-5-3 against the spread. No matter if Baltimore's the underdog or Pittsburgh's the underdog, whoever it is, the underdog in the matchup is 21-5-3, 81%. The last 10 games, Pittsburgh versus Baltimore, the underdog is 10-0 against the spread. These are just close games. They're gonna be decided. Sometimes they're not even decided by a field goal. Sometimes it's a 2-point conversion at the end, a safety, something silly. So this is the exact kind of game you're gonna get. That the total is 35. Tyron Huntley, I don't think he's going to play well against this defense, because when you look at Pittsburgh, they blitz at the 4th highest rate now. That's what they've kind of decided is their identity. And Huntley is 50th of 51 quarterbacks in PFF grade against the blitz at 39.4, minimum with a minimum of 20 blitz dropbacks this year. This Pittsburgh defense is up to 12th in weighted DVOA. And Huntley was the average. I think it's 114 passing yards. So Baltimore, they're going to have to run the ball, but Pittsburgh defends the run very well. They're 7th in weighted run defense DVOA. They've been good against the run all year. So I think it'll be a struggle there. And on the other side of the ball, Baltimore's defense has been great. You were not going to kind of make any bones about it. Baltimore's been one of the best defenses in the league, but against a team like Pittsburgh, when they're not going to be able to run the ball as well, when Huntley is not really going to be able to do much against the blitz, I think Pittsburgh can do enough here with Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, Deontay, all those guys. I think they'll get, you could get 14, 16 points here, and if not win the game outright, cover the spread. So I like Pittsburgh here. I think they are a live dog, and Tomlin, we know him in these spots, 50-27 against the spread as a dog, 65%. As a dog from October on, he's 41-19-2, 68% against the spread. As a dog against an opponent with a better record, 26-10-1, 72% against the spread. And, Baltimore, they did clinch a playoff spot. So, this is just kind of one of these spots where I think Pittsburgh is going to come out a little more motivated here. Curious to hear your thoughts, because obviously you know the Ravens very well, but I like Pittsburgh in a spot. Love the dog almost indiscriminately in this matchup.
Yeah, I would also probably look under again. I think I said last week that the Falcons wouldn't get to 10, and it'll be like 17-9, and it was 17-9.
Yeah, it was.
I don't mind taking the points in this rivalry, especially without Lamar Jackson. But anytime these two teams play, if you took since Harbaugh arrived in Baltimore in 2008, if you took the underdog of 3 or more in this matchup, you would be 17-1-3 against the spread. 17-1-3. And if you look at the games with Huntley's played 4 games for the Ravens. The Ravens games haven't gone past 30 total points, average of 22.75. The scores have been 10-9, 16-14, 13-3, and 17-9. And yeah, Steelers defense playing really well. Both these teams haven't allowed more than 20 points over the past 4 weeks. Both run-heavy teams, both really good run defenses. Ravens' run defense has been the best in the NFL since signing Roquan Smith. You got Bowser. You got a Bowser into the mix. You got Marcus Williams back now. I doubt Peters or Campbell plays. Like the same reason why I don't think Lamar Jackson will play. It's just the Ravens are in the playoffs already. And in a way, they might not even care about winning the division. Like you win the division, you're like hosting the Chargers. And if you don't, you're going to the Jags or Titans in the first round. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I might choose door 2. Now, if the Ravens lose this game, you might have the NFL come in and bring in the Bills refs for Monday night in Cincy. So the Cincy Baltimore game determines the division next week. But because if the Ravens lose this game and the Bengals lose, then the game next week still determines the division. But if the Bengals win and the Ravens lose, then the Bengals win the division, and that game means nothing next week. So they just want to make sure Lamar, Peters, Campbell, and everyone are healthy for the playoffs. So they'll care about this game. It's prime time. It's against their rival. But yeah, points will be at a premium here. Steelers defense has been a different animal with TJ Watt. Since drafting him in 2017, they're 57, 26, and 2 when he's in the lineup, 1 and 10 without him, allowing over a yard per play more when he's not on the field. So, I would try to get 3, obviously. I would even buy it to 3, up to -125 here, just because points are going to be at such a premium, and there's a really good chance this ends at 1, 2, or 3. But for the sake of this contest, that doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't mind taking the points here. And there's even like an illness going around with the Ravens now, but it's Huntley and there's no receivers.
And in the last
Steelers run, he's been good.
Yeah, and I was going to say in the last matchup, they played a couple weeks ago, and obviously Huntley went down for part of that game, but the Ravens ended up winning 16-14, but the Steelers turned it over 3 times.
Trubisky threw 3 picks.
Terrible interceptions. Well, yeah, well, Kenny Pickett has thrown 1 pick over his last 5 starts that he finished. So Kenny Pickett, the one thing he has been doing better is taking care of the football. And, if you do that in this kind of game, Pittsburgh outgained them last time. I think Pittsburgh can get the win here. And like you said, yeah, I don't know if Baltimore is fully invested. Obviously, they're not going to just tank it, but like Pittsburgh here. All right, so that is going to wrap up the Week 16 Sunday 6-pack. Stuck is going Jets -1.5, Colts +5.5, and Broncos +12.5. I'm going with the Saints +6, the Bears +5.5, and the Steelers +2.5. So we got some Mike White.
I got Mike White, Foles, and Russell Wilson. Mike White's the best quarterback in that group.
Yeah. I got Fields, Dalton, and Pickett. So yeah, I got Fields is the best quarterback in that group.
Yeah.